I've been very lucky because I was born in this beautiful country, which I call as the land of opportunities. So we hear it all the time. We hear about America, that America is a country of opportunities. But I have a very different opinion about my own country. The reason is that there is so much to be done here. Whichever field you choose to follow, whatever profession you decide to get into, there is so much to do. And there are no limits to which you can develop it. The reason is that things have not been done properly. They have not been done with the passion, with professionalism, or with commitment. I'm a graduate of King Edward Medical College, and I graduated from there and started teaching there. I identify myself as a teacher primarily. Yes, there are other aspects of my life. You talk about the labs and medical college and one facility or another, but primarily I'm a teacher because I take immense pride in that. I taught at King Edward for almost 25 years, then on to another medical college, and then finally started my own medical school, which has been there for the last 14 years now, producing amazing graduates. Once I completed my post-graduation, it was just logical that pathologists work in labs. So I had the opportunity of starting my own lab. Not that I had huge resources. I somehow gathered those resources by giving tuitions to medical students who had come to Pakistan from other countries. Our medical schools at that time were so good that we got students from all over the world, particularly Middle East, the whole of Middle East. And they took pride in being graduates of King Edward. So I was their mentor. I used to look after their cultural issues and educational issues. And that's how I saved some money and I started my lab, which was maybe 1,500 square feet. That was the whole area where I started, and then had some very basic instruments, 3 or 4 very basic machines. And that was the start of my diagnostic career. Well, I have followed a certain principles in my life. I have never compared myself with anyone. I don't have any role models. I believe that every other person is better than me. And if I can, absorb, if I can adapt others' goods, that might make me a better person. So I don't idealize anybody. I like everybody, and I think people are so much better than myself. Similarly, I have never set a goal in my life. So when I say this, it sounds ridiculous to many people. They say, okay, what are you talking about? It was your goal to become a doctor, do MBBS, and then post-graduation, and then this and that. So I call them as landmarks. Those are not goals, those are landmarks, because life is a continuous journey. And there's no one who stops you from going beyond limits. It's your choice where you want to stop. So I made a choice that I never set a goal for myself. I just kept moving. So in the process, started my lab. It was a very basic lab to start with. But the people of this country have always deserved more. They continue to deserve more and more and better and better. I would get a kind of, we call it tachycardia, when your heartbeat starts speeding up. When someone came to me with a request that he wanted such and such lab test investigation, he said it was not available in Pakistan. So that boiled my blood. Why not in my country? And then I would ask myself, if I don't do it, who will? So for that, when you're making progress in any profession, you have certain priorities. If your priorities are straight, if your priorities are clearly defined, then you make progress because you're very clear in your mind about what you want to achieve. My first priority was never to make money. My first priority was to provide facilities, innovation, technology, advancement, bringing in the kind of facilities that were not already available in this country. I love my country. I don't claim to be the most patriot, but I think I'm doing reasonably well placed. So I feel that it is responsibility of every Pakistani to keep thinking as to what he has given back to this beautiful country. So with that thought process, I have always invested in innovation. When your priority is your profession, when your priority is to do things for people, then money follows. So you don't run after money. And that is what I teach my students, undergrad and postgrad students. Excel in what you are doing. Do what others don't have. Share with them what you don't have. Like, don't look at the one who has gone ahead of you. Yeah, it's good to compete, but it's not so good to pull others' legs. Share whatever you have, whether it is knowledge, material, time, because these are the things that most people lack. They need a shoulder to rest sometimes. And if you can spare some of your time to, console somebody, do it. If you have plenty of knowledge, and your colleague who's your class fellow, or maybe a year behind you, or even ahead of you, if you have some knowledge and you find that person is lacking in that, sit down with him, tell him, come on, let's talk about it. I'll teach you what I have. And same goes for material. You have been blessed with money, and you find people around who they're not lucky enough, share it. And I've seen all my life that when you share, you get more. I mean, this is not something created by me. It's there. It's been there forever. Share what you have and you'll get more. So these are very simple things, simple principles of life. And this is what I teach my students. This is what I teach my children. I have 4 beautiful children and a lovely wife. And fortunately, me and my wife, we have absolutely a similar thought process. My children, one message for them is make sure that if one of you is left behind for one reason or another, pull him along. And it's the same thing that I tell my colleagues, my team members, my students. So in a nutshell, that's the journey of my life. And doing so, like, when COVID came, when the first case of COVID was reported in Wuhan, my elder son, who is also a pathologist, and my younger son, who's a lawyer and takes a lot of interest in the, lab matters. So we talked about it. And we said, my son said that, Dad, COVID is there in China. So I said, viruses don't have boundaries, they don't respect boundaries. They're bound to spread. So he said, Omar said, how about we get a kit of 100 tests for COVID? I said, no, get 10,000 tests. He said, why? I said, 2 things. If COVID comes and we are not ready for it, then a lot of people will suffer. Because we knew that there were very, very limited resource available in the rest of the country. We had the technology, we had the infrastructure, and we knew, because we deal with viruses all the time, so we knew if COVID came, we could diagnose it. And I said, okay, this is one scenario. It comes to Pakistan, and if we are not ready for it, people will suffer. If it does not come, we'll lose 10,000 tests. That should not bother us. So fortunately, we were ready for it. We talk about monkeypox these days, and we talk about similar other disease process. We're ready for that. We're ready for monkeypox diagnostic today. That is because we know that if I don't do it, who will? So that's the question I've always asked myself. The purpose of starting a medical school was, like I said, I've always taken pride in being a teacher. So it just made sense that I develop a medical college where I can produce graduates of my choice. So they asked me, how do you define success? So the answer is very simple. Success to me, as a pathologist, as a teacher, that if I did not produce a number of pathologists and teachers who are better than me, then I've not lived a life. That's a message I got from my father. He always said that, son, if you did not live this life better than you got it, then you have not lived a life. So whether it is at undergrad level or postgrad level, I think I've been reasonably successful in doing that. The graduates that I'm producing at Central Park Medical College, they are very good graduates. They're not only good doctors, they're good human beings too. And the pathologists that Chughtai Institute of Pathology is producing, each of these pathologists is a better pathologist than myself. And that is my success. That is how I define success. So that is very simple story of my life. I lived in the walled city of Lahore. If you visit the walled city of Lahore, the houses are small, they're multi-storied, and back to back. You can climb from the rooftop from one house to another and another and go way far. So we were a huge family, 9 siblings living in a small house. And my eldest brother was 18 years older than me. But you know, in those days, in 50s and 60s, we used to have journals like Life magazine and Reader's Digest and the likes, psychologists. We were regular subscribers to those journals, and we had access to that. And our elder brothers would, sit us down and ask us to read certain chapters on those journals. And as we grew up, I was number 8 among 9 siblings. We saw hundreds of books lying in our house. So one day we sat together and we organized all those books, and we kind of organized a home library. We indexed them and how the libraries work. But very soon we realized during summer, families moved to the ground floor, and winter they would come to the upper floor. There were no air conditioners at that time. So we found out that our books were being stolen from upstairs during summer when we were at the lower ground floor. So that was a very painful experience for us. And I lived with that painful experience for all my life, up until my daughter, who was at Harvard, and my younger son, who was again in Boston doing his law. We found out that from our country, some of the most valuable books, which were hundreds of years old, had been abandoned by families, and they were being sold on the roadside as, whatever. And those books were being picked up by certain people and shifted to libraries in the US. So that was the turning point in my thought process. I decided to start my own public library. It has always been my passion to start a library. So that was the defining moment. We started a small library. I acquired a 10-Marla house, and we started this process. It's been almost 8 years. It started from there, and then he said, what can we do for the students? So we made the library absolutely free, accessible to everybody. And one day, within 2 months, 4 or 5 young guys from remote villages, they came over to me and they said, so we want to appear in CSS exam. We don't have books. So from that day onwards, we made this policy that any child, any student who comes to the library and does not have a certain book or books, we will provide those books to them. So that was a very modest start. But then, when you are traveling on a certain path, the new ideas start coming in. So we started collecting books that were historical, of all the subjects, all the different subjects, and which were antique books, some of them written 300, 400, 500 years ago. We collected all the everything written by Iqbal and Faiz and the likes. And then we thought that let's start digitizing these books. So we started one library, and then people approached us from different areas that they needed a library in their own region. So we started another library in Lahore, and then wherever my lab has ample space, my collection center has ample space, we started setting up reading rooms there. So I don't know exactly how many, but we have a large number of reading rooms across the country. We then started a library. There were a few students who had come from Balochistan. So one day they came up to me and said, in Kuwait, in Balochistan, we don't have any library. So can you do something about it? So we said, yes. We visited Quetta, found a place, and we've started a library there. The reason is this notion, this common belief that children of today do not want to read. That is not correct. They don't have opportunities. They don't have access to libraries. There are some very good libraries in this country, but the protocols are so strict, the security issues are so terrible that they cannot even enter those libraries. So to make it easy for them, what? Number one, provide a space where any child can come without any inhibition. No membership charges. You sit there in air-conditioned environment. Wi-Fi is available all the time, and they are served tea or coffee twice a day, which is on the house. This is to make their stay comfortable. So the result is that there are hundreds of students, in fact thousands of them now, who are benefiting from these libraries. We have digitized, I don't know, maybe close to 100,000 books so far. And this material, this literature is available online. Anybody can access this literature. And in fact, I don't know how many of them have already cleared CSS exam, are working for the government. Many of them have completed their thesis making use of this literature available online and at the locations. Very recently, we have started working with municipal corporation libraries. It's so unfortunate. 50 years ago, there was a municipal corporation library in every municipal of the country. The buildings are still there, but they are deserted. You enter the building, it's gone, rot. There are piles and piles of literature lying there full of dust, So we started this collaboration with municipal corporation. We have already acquired 3 municipal corporation libraries and completely revamped them. And we started with Nankana Sahib. There was a very particular reason for starting it at Nankana Sahib because that's the Mecca of Sikhs. And Sikhs are very, very dear to us. So we said, we will create a space where Sikhs coming from all over the country, they will come and find that their Mecca has this resource where practically everything related to Sikh religion is being developed. We are trying to get all possible material related to Sikhism in our Nankana Sahib library. Similarly, we started 2 other libraries in 2 other municipal corporations. You see, once again, you have to pay back. Don't ask this. Kennedy said it once about the US, but I would say to all the Pakistanis, don't ask what Pakistan has given to you. Ask yourself, what have I given to Pakistan? Pakistan is a lovely company, very, very beautiful country, and we are very fortunate. And I salute. I love Jinnah, and I loved Iqbal. They were the reason we are living in an independent environment. So I salute them, and it is our obligation, so our duty, to create this kind of facility for our coming generations.